Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to imagine, just for a second, that totally intoxicating, dreamy feeling of a perfect new romance. You know the exact feeling I'm talking about, right? You're suddenly just flooded with constant attention, you're on the receiving end of these massive, over-the-top grand gestures, and you found someone who seems absolutely obsessed with you within literally days of meeting. Maybe they're texting you these long good morning paragraphs before you've even had your first sip of coffee, or, they're sending a giant bouquet of flowers to your desk on a random Tuesday for no reason other than they were thinking of you. It literally feels like the best thing that has ever happened to you. Your brain is just swimming in dopamine, your friends are all super jealous, and everything just feels perfectly right.
But here is where we really need to take a massive step back. Because how do you actually tell the difference between a soulmate and a scammer? Is it really love, or is it a tactic? That intense early phase, the one that feels exactly like a Hollywood movie, well, it might not be genuine affection at all. Often, it's actually a highly calculated maneuver completely designed to trap you before you even realize what's happening. That tactic actually has a name, and it's called love bombing. It's a manipulation tactic characterized by overwhelming positive attention designed to create rapid emotional attachment. And look, I want to pause and completely validate you right now if you've been through this, because this is one of the absolute hardest manipulation tactics to recognize. Why? Well, because in the moment, it feels incredible. As human beings, we all have this fundamental desire to be seen, to be cherished, to feel special. When someone comes along and fulfills that basic human need at a magnitude of 10, you don't put your guard up. You aren't going to build walls against something that's making you feel more loved than you ever have before.
Part 1. The setup. Too much, too fast.
Okay, let's dive right into this and look at exactly how this trap is initially set. The setup of love bombing relies on one core principle: being too much, too fast. A manipulator doesn't just do one nice thing. They bundle three critical actions incredibly rapidly: overwhelming affection, excessive gifts, and Russian commitment. They deploy all of these at the exact same time. By attacking on all three fronts, they completely overwhelm your natural boundaries and any logical defenses you might usually have when you meet someone new. It eats up all your emotional bandwidth, essentially flooding your sensory processing so you literally cannot spot the red flags waving right in front of your face.
And it all happens at an absolute whirlwind pace. We're talking constant texting from dawn until dusk where they demand your undivided attention. We're talking over-the-top compliments that make you feel incredibly idealized. We are talking about mapping out an entire future together, vacations, living arrangements, maybe even marriage, within days or just a couple of weeks. These specific actions are engineered to forge an unnaturally fast emotional attachment before you have a single second to stop and think clearly. It's absolutely crucial to remember that healthy relationships rely on boundaries. Constant texting isn't always a sign of endless love. Quite often, it's actually an early boundary test masquerading as affection, just checking to see if you're going to drop everything in your own life just to cater to them.
Now, the psychological reality of those grand gifts is super fascinating. Grand gifts create obligation. The frequent, expensive, or really elaborate gestures early on aren't just the generous acts of a smitten partner, they are a highly effective tool tapping into what psychologists call the rule of reciprocity. This is a deep-seated human urge to return a favor. These gifts are used deliberately to create a deep, subconscious sense of debt and obligation in your mind. You start to feel like you literally owe them your time, your loyalty, and your affection simply because they dropped a crazy amount of money on concert tickets or a lavish dinner on your second date.
And then comes the element that acts as the lock on this initial trap, the commitment. They start pushing intensely for exclusivity, pushing to move in together super early, or demanding major life decisions far, far too soon. We're talking about suggesting you co-sign a lease or adopt a golden retriever together when you barely even know each other's middle names. By forcing these massive milestones before you genuinely know who they are, the manipulator secures their position in your life. It makes it much, much harder for you to simply walk away when things inevitably start getting strange.
And then, just as quickly as it started, they completely disappear.
Part 2. The Sudden Withdrawal. The trapdoor opens.
Welcome to the sudden withdrawal. The trapdoor literally opens beneath you. Once the manipulator feels entirely secure in that deep attachment you've just built, the intense, overwhelming affection simply vanishes. The performance is over. In the beginning, you were drowning in constant attention, grand gestures, and beautiful future planning. It was a literal fairy tale. Then, suddenly, during the withdrawal phase, all of that is replaced by cold distance, harsh criticism, and total unpredictability.
The whiplash effect of this is staggering. The person you thought you knew, the one who just yesterday made you the center of their entire universe, seems completely and utterly gone. And it leaves you desperate to figure out what you did wrong to ruin something so perfect.
Part 3. The toxic cycle keeping you hooked.
But here is the truly insidious part, and this brilliantly illustrates what's really happening. This withdrawal isn't a breakup. It's actually the start of a toxic, disorienting, and endlessly repeating loop completely designed to keep you permanently hooked. Let's just trace a typical week. On day 1, you experience that sudden, agonizing withdrawal. You're confused, you're exhausted, and you're hurt. But then, on day 3, there's a brief return of affection, just a tiny little taste of that amazing person from the beginning. A sweet text, a warm hug, it gives you an immediate rush of hope. But by day 5, boom, it's right back to unpredictable criticism and ice-cold distance. These brief, random returns of affection keep the victim completely confused, constantly chasing the ghost of the person they met on day 1, fully convinced that if they just try hard enough, the love bomber will come back permanently.
Part 4. The lock. Why the trap works.
So why does this trap work so incredibly well on smart, capable people? Let's take a more clinical, psychological look to demystify exactly why this abusive cycle is so hard to escape. I want you to understand that if you fall for this, it is not a failure of your logic. It's a hijacking of your biology. It all comes down to a core psychological concept: intermittent reinforcement. This is defined as the delivery of a reward at irregular, unpredictable intervals. Psychology shows us over and over again that unpredictable rewards are actually one of the strongest possible ways to create a deep, unbreakable psychological attachment. It's the exact same psychology that keeps people hooked on slot machines. Think about it. If you put a rat in a maze and it gets a food pellet every single time it pulls a lever, it pulls it when it's hungry and then it just stops. But if the food pellet drops completely randomly, maybe on the first bowl, maybe on the 50th, the rat will obsessively pull that lever until it collapses.
Intermittent reinforcement literally wires your brain to crave the manipulator. It creates very real, deep-seated addiction-like patterns in your neural pathways. When you finally get that random hit of affection after days of being completely ignored, your brain just floods with chemical dopamine. That is exactly why logic completely fails the victim in this scenario. You aren't just dealing with a bad relationship. Your brain is fighting a literal biological, chemical addiction to this person's validation. Overcoming this phase actually requires a detox. You literally have to start treating the toxic partner exactly like you would treat breaking a substance habit, because neurologically speaking, that is exactly what they've become. So the absolutely crucial point is this: if someone made you feel like the absolute center of their world overnight, it is incredibly worth watching how they behave once that honeymoon phase ends. Post-honeymoon behavior, not those initial intense, cinematic gestures, is the ultimate truth-teller of someone's actual character. After all, anyone can play a charming character for a few weeks. Even a complete sociopath can fake a rom-com for a month, right? It's what happens when the director yells cut and the mask slips that tells you who they really are.
So what does this all mean for us? Have you experienced this cycle? It's a heavy question, I know, but recognizing the architecture of love bombing is the very first and most important step in breaking free from it and ensuring you never fall into the trap again. I want you to reflect on your own dating experiences with this structure in mind. If this breakdown resonates with you and you want to understand more about the hidden mechanics of human behavior, be sure to subscribe for more psychology explainers just like this one every week. Thanks so much for joining me to figure this out. Stay safe, stay aware, and I'll catch you next time.